$101.2 billion. That's how much the U.S. government collected in tariff revenue in the first 8 months of fiscal year 2025, from October 2024 through May 2025. By the end of the fiscal year in September, total tariff collections hit $195 billion, a 150% increase over fiscal year 2024. Think about that for a second. The effective tariff rate skyrocketed from 2.2% in January 2025 to 10.55% by August, a 380% increase in just 8 months. That's the highest tariff rate since 1934, during the depths of the Great Depression. And it's not slowing down. Yale Budget Lab projects total tariff collections could reach $2.6 trillion over the next decade. But here's what they aren't telling you. This isn't revenue. It's a tax. An invisible tax that doesn't show up on your receipts. You don't see tariff, $47 on your grocery bill. You just see eggs cost $9 instead of $6. You see a washing machine cost $1,200 instead of $1,000. You see your car insurance go up because auto parts are more expensive. Yale Budget Lab calculates the average American household is losing $3,800 per year in purchasing power due to tariffs. Wharton School estimates middle-class families will lose $22,000 over 4 years. That's a $2,800 per household annual tax that's completely invisible. You're paying it every day. You just don't know it. And the mechanism behind this wealth transfer reveals why tariffs are the most regressive tax in modern history. The poor pay more, the middle class gets crushed, and the rich barely notice. Let's start with the math. Because once you see the numbers, you can't unsee them. Fiscal year 2025 tariff collections. $195 billion. That is more than 250% of what was collected in fiscal year 2024. Monthly customs duties rose from $7 billion in January to $30 billion by September. The federal government collected $151 billion from customs duties in just the second half of fiscal year 2025, a nearly 300% increase over the same period in 2024. Now let's break down where those tariffs are hitting. China faces the highest tariffs, with effective rates reaching 39.2% in August. Steel and aluminum products are taxed at 39.8%. Automotive vehicles face 21% tariffs. Consumer electronics, clothing, furniture, toys, basically everything you buy is getting hit. Yale Budget Lab forecasts that if tariffs remain at 2025 levels, the average household will lose about $3,800 annually in purchasing power. Over 4 years, that's more than $15,000 in additional expenses. But for middle-class families specifically, the damage is worse. The Becker-Friedman Institute at the University of Chicago estimates middle-class households are losing between $3,800 and $5,000 per year. Over 4 years, that's up to $20,000. Wharton School's analysis is even more dire. Middle-class families could incur average lifetime losses amounting to $22,000 due to these tariffs. That's a generational wealth transfer. A 30-year-old family today will lose $22,000 over their lifetime because of tariffs implemented in 2025. But the chart I am about to show you reveals why this is the most regressive tax ever created. Because tariffs don't hit everyone equally. They hit the poor and middle class hardest. And here's why. A regressive tax is one where lower-income households pay a higher percentage of their income than wealthier households. Sales taxes are regressive. Payroll taxes are regressive. And tariffs are the most regressive of all. Why? Because poor and middle-class families spend a larger share of their income on goods. A family earning $50,000 a year might spend $40,000 on necessities: food, clothing, appliances, furniture, electronics. If tariffs increase the cost of those goods by 10%, that family is paying $4,000 more per year. That's 8% of their income. But a family earning $500,000 a year might spend $100,000 on goods and $400,000 on services, investments, and savings. If tariffs increase the cost of goods by 10%, that family pays $10,000 more. That's only 2% of their income. Yale Budget Lab's model predicts that tariffs could elevate grocery expenses alone by as much as $4,900 annually. $4,900. Just for food. That's a massive hit for a family earning $50,000 to $70,000 a year. But it's barely noticeable for a family earning $500,000. And it gets worse. Tariffs don't just hit the goods you buy. They cascade through the entire economy. Shipping costs rise because imported fuel is more expensive. Manufacturing costs rise because imported raw materials are more expensive. Service costs rise because businesses pass their higher costs to consumers. A vehicle priced at $30,000 might become $2,520 more expensive due to tariffs on auto parts and steel. A $500 smartphone could see a price hike of $75. Appliances like washers and dryers saw a 12% price increase after 2018 tariffs. That's $120 more for a $1,000 washing machine. But the mechanism Wall Street doesn't want you to see reveals who profits from this wealth transfer. Because tariffs aren't just a tax on consumers, they're a subsidy to domestic producers. And those domestic producers are using tariffs to jack up prices even higher than the tariff itself. Here's how it works. Trump imposes a 25% tariff on Chinese steel. Chinese steel that used to cost $100 per ton now costs $125. You'd think American steel producers would keep their prices at $100 and undercut the Chinese, right? Wrong. American steel producers raise their prices to $120. Why? Because they can. The tariff created an artificial price floor. Chinese steel is now $125. American producers can charge $120 and still be competitive. Consumers lose, Chinese producers lose. But American steel companies make windfall profits. The same thing happened with washing machines. After tariffs were imposed on imported washers in 2018, prices rose 12%. But it wasn't just imported washers that got more expensive. Domestic washers rose 11.5%. Even though they weren't subject to tariffs, American manufacturers used the tariffs as cover to raise their own prices. Economists call this the umbrella effect. Tariffs create a price umbrella that allows domestic producers to raise prices without losing market share. And who benefits? Shareholders, CEOs, the wealthy. Who pays? Consumers. The middle class. The poor U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated on X that the findings demonstrate the U.S. is reaping the rewards of Trump's tariff strategy. He said, as President Trump diligently works to reclaim our nation's economic sovereignty, today's monthly Treasury statement showcases record customs duties and without any inflation. Except that's a lie. Tariffs are inflation. They're a hidden tax that raises the price of everything. And the fact that Bessent is celebrating record tariff collections as revenue proves the point. It's a tax. On you. But here's the death spiral scenario. Tariffs stay in place for the next 4 years. Yale Budget Lab projects. Cumulative tariff collections of $2.6 trillion through 2035. That's $2.6 trillion extracted from consumers and handed to the government and domestic producers. But the economy weakens. Because tariffs reduce purchasing power, middle-class families lose $3,800 per year. They cut spending, retail sales fall, corporate earnings disappoint. GDP growth slows, unemployment rises. The Fed is forced to cut rates aggressively to stimulate the economy. But inflation stays elevated because tariffs keep prices high. That's stagflation. Slower growth plus higher inflation. The nightmare scenario where your savings lose value and your income doesn't keep up with prices. And the worst part? The tariff revenue doesn't even cover the damage. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates that Trump's tax cuts and spending increases will add $15 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. Tariffs will raise $2.6 trillion. That covers less than 20% of the deficit. So you're paying $3,800 more per year. Your purchasing power is collapsing. The middle class is getting crushed. And it's not even fixing the deficit. It's just a massive wealth transfer from consumers to domestic producers and the government. So here's the brutal math. $101.2 billion collected in 8 months. $195 billion for fiscal year 2025. Effective tariff rate up 380%, from 2.2% to 10.55%. Average household loss, $3,800 per year. Middle-class family lifetime loss, $22,000. Grocery cost increase, $4,900 per year. Car price increase, $2,520. Washing machine price increase, 12%. This is the largest middle-class wealth transfer in modern history. You're paying a $2,800 per household annual tax that doesn't show up on your receipts. You just see higher prices. And you think it's inflation, but it's not. It's tariffs. A deliberate policy choice to extract wealth from consumers and hand it to domestic producers and the government. Trump calls it economic sovereignty. Bessent calls it reaping the rewards. But for the average American family, it's a tax. An invisible, regressive, devastating tax, and it's only getting worse. Are you watching the show, or are you paying the $3,800 tariff tax? What do you think? Drop your answer in the comments below.